So if you find this sleep story helpful or interesting, then give it a thumbs up, leave any comments that you've got below, and if you aren't already, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you can receive notifications of when future sleep stories go live. I have dozens and dozens of stories already on my channel that you can go and search. I also release new stories every single week, so I hope you enjoy this story. So take a moment to get comfortable and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, you can listen to the sound of my voice. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, you can begin to drift off asleep. And I don't know whether you'll drift off asleep faster with the words that I use or with the spaces between my words. And as you continue to drift off asleep, I'm just going to tell a story in the background. And it's a story about a horse. And it's out in a field one morning, and the sun's just beginning to rise. And as the sun begins to rise, so the horse can notice the mist hovering just above the fields, the way the sunlight shines through the trees around the outside of the fields, the long shadows. As the sky becomes lighter, and as the sun continues to rise, and the horse walks around the field, feeling the firm mud beneath its hooves, eating some grass, so the mist can begin to clear, and as the mist begins to clear, so the horse can notice cobwebs in some of the grass, and the way the dew catches on those cobwebs and on the grass, and seems to make the fields twinkle and sparkle as a light breeze can blow through the fields across that grass. And the horse can go and have a drink from a trough of water, and notice how the temperature's warming as that sun rises. And then the horse can hear a person approaching the fields. And that person comes up to the fence, and the horse can trot over to that fence and sees the person getting a small paper bag out of their pocket, taking a sweet out of that bag, putting the sweet in the palm of their hand, as the horse carefully lowers its head and uses its lips to pick up that sweet, and then eats that sweet, being aware of its mouth salivating slightly as it eats that sweet. and the sweetness going around its mouth. And then the horse watches as the owner puts that bag of sweets back in their pocket. And the horse thinks that they'd quite like another. And they give the owner a friendly nudge with their head. And the owner pats them on the side of the neck. And some dust comes off the side of their neck, catching some sunlight. And the owner puts some feed down for the horse, and the horse eats some of that feed as the owner leaves. And after eating, the horse just trots around its field, eats some grass, lies down on the grass. And without anyone there, the horse has very little to do. And so the horse finds a comfortable spot near a tree, lies down on the ground, and begins to comfortably drift asleep. And as that horse comfortably drifts asleep, so it can hear the wind rustling through the leaves of the tree, sounds of birds in the distance. It can notice the occasional warm bit of sun shining on its face as that horse drifts and floats comfortably into a dream. And as that horse drifts and floats into a dream, so it begins to dream of walking through some woodland towards a clearing. And as it walks through that woodland, so it begins to notice this woodland isn't like normal woodland. The horse can notice interesting plants, strange glowing plants. Some plants with almost like little flashing lights on the leaves that seem to flash and almost bioluminesce as that horse touches and brushes past leaves. And the further into the woodland the horse goes, the denser that woodland seems to get, and as that woodland becomes more dense, so it becomes darker. And the darker it becomes, the more beautiful it becomes with the lights on all the different plants. And the green lights of fireflies flying around, almost like doing figure of eights with each other. And that horse continues to walk deeper into the woodland, heading for the clearing at the far side of the woodland. And while they walk deeper into the woodland, so they can hear the sounds of the birds in this woodland. They can hear the distant barking of a dog. And while they continue, so they notice something moving in one of the trees. And with curiosity, that horse begins to slow down and look up at that tree. And they see the broadest, most beautiful smile, and then a pair of eyes, and then a cat appears in that tree. A cat that seems to have the ability to change the colour and the effect of its fur, to blend in with its surroundings. And the cat's fur changes colour, as if to signal to the horse that it's friendly, and to acknowledge, almost like a hello. And the cat stands up and goes to leap out the tree, and the horse thinks it looks too high, and yet the cat leaps anyway, landing on its feet, shaking its bum, moving its shoulders a bit, and then walking confidently to the horse, and sitting in front of that horse, meowing. And the horse leans down, and the cat leans up, and they touch noses. And then the horse crouches down further, and the cat climbs up onto its back. And the horse can feel that that cat on its back has decided to slouch down and rest, and it continues walking. And as it walks, so it can feel that cat purring on its back, and it can hear that rumble of the purr. And that purring cat seems to be purring at a frequency that makes that horse feel deeply relaxed and calm. And the horse can notice its breathing slowing and feels itself relaxing, and its stride becoming regular. And as it starts heading out towards the clearing, where it can notice that out in that clearing, the sunlight is lighting up whatever's out there, that meadow. And the horse hears some buzzing and whizzing sounds around it. And then notices a green fairy darting around above its head, taking sharp turns and then hovering. And the green fairy communicates to the horse that there's an experience they need to have, that there are some mushrooms out in that clearing, and to have the experience they need to have, they're going to need to eat one of those mushrooms. And the green fairy asks if the horse is brave enough to trust her and to explore the experience. And the horse acknowledges that they are. And then the fairy flies off. And as that horse arrives at the clearing, so the cat jumps down off their back. It weaves its way around their legs before walking back off into the woodland as the horse leaves the woodland and enters long grass of a meadow, the most beautiful meadow flowers. The subtle sound of a slow flowing stream down to a lake further down the meadow. And that horse eats some of the grass and can feel the warmth of the sun as it explores the meadow. And it walks over to the stream, has a drink of that cool, fresh water, and can see a couple of otters down in the lake, lying on their backs, holding front paws, just resting and floating, almost like they're just gazing up at the sky, enjoying being in the moment, perhaps even being in love. And the horse watches for a while, almost mesmerized by the way those otters are just drifting with the current, so slowly and gently. Then the horse begins its search for that mushroom. And as it searches for that mushroom, so it sees the most beautiful butterfly flying from plant to plant. And the butterfly seems to almost give off a colour as it flies, almost like it has a slight trail following it of light as it flies from one plant to another and lands on a plant, broadens its wings and then pulls them together so slowly, so carefully, before flying to another plant. And the horse just watches the different nature with intrigue as it explores the meadow, before eventually finding a patch of glowing green mushrooms. And the horse thinks for a moment about whether it should eat a mushroom or not, and then decides that it's going to trust the green fairy. And the horse eats one of those mushrooms and then sits down on the ground, rests itself there, and begins to drift comfortably asleep. And as that horse drifts comfortably asleep in the meadow, so it begins to dream. And it dreams about walking down into a large cave. And as it dreams of walking down into that large cave, so the horse instinctively starts counting itself down into that cave, feeling like somehow that's what it's supposed to do. Counting itself down deeper into that cave. 10, 9, 8, 7, deeper into the cave. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the horse finds itself deeply in that cave. It can hear the distant dripping sound of water and notices there are crystals in the walls of the cave, crystals poking up from the floor, crystals in the ceiling of the cave, pink crystals, purple crystals, blue crystals, green crystals, and all of them are glowing and giving off light, as if somehow something's powering these crystals. And as that horse walks around the cave and goes near to the different crystals, so it notices that each crystal seems to have a slight hum to it, almost like each crystal is an energy device, somehow giving off different frequencies of energy. So the blue crystals are vibrating with one frequency, pink crystals with another, purple crystals with another. And as the horse goes near different crystals and gently touches the different crystals, so each crystal gives it a slightly different experience. Each crystal seems to vibrate and send that vibration through that horse, just very subtly, but enough to have that horse almost synchronize with the energy of that crystal. Touching one crystal, feeling calm. Touching another crystal and feeling confident. Touching another crystal and feeling happy. And the horse is curious about how this works and what's going on here. And the horse can see that there's a way out of this cave. And so it continues through that cave and heads out of that cave into what seems to be like the park of a city. And as that horse walks out into that park, so it can notice people walking around. And those people walking around, it notices, seem to have holograms walking around with them. And it watches as those people walk around with those holograms, wondering where they're projecting from. and notices outside the park in the distance the tall towers of a city and lots of flying drones seeming to weave themselves through those towers. And the horse views this scene with intrigue. And as it walks through the park, so it begins to hear the sounds of a fairground. And with curiosity, the horse decides to go and explore and find out more. And it trots through the park, through grass, and then onto more firm pavements. And then sees a fairground, and enters that fairground, and sees children with candy floss, and thinks of the sweets of its owner. And sees a large wheel with people climbing on, and that wheel slowly moving around, and the horse wondering, what is it people get on it for? It's just a chair that goes up in the air and comes back down again. And the horse becomes deeply intrigued with one of the rides that seems to be lots of gold and brightly coloured horses. And bizarre music playing, and it seems to spin around and around, and the horses go up and down. And children are sitting on those horses, and couples are sitting holding hands on those horses, as they go round and around, up and down, as music plays in the background. And people walk in all directions and seem to be having so much fun. And the horse is curious why someone would pay to sit on a horse that isn't real, that just goes around in a circle and doesn't seem to get anywhere. And you just end up getting off where you got on. And then the horse hears some screaming, but it doesn't sound like people screaming with fear. And it goes to explore and sees on top of a building a roller coaster and people in carts screaming as the cart drops down, and then being quiet as that cart seems to ratchet its way up again, working its way round a course, ready to drop down again. And this horse finds this the most bizarre place. And then it sees a machine that seems to be a fortune-telling machine that says to ask a question and it'll give you an answer. And the horse goes over to that machine. Asks, will I ever find love? Will I ever have anyone to share my life with? And then taps the button on the machine with its nose, and the machine whirs and moves, makes some different sounds. Lights flash up the side, along the top, on the front, and then out pops an answer, just saying yes. And the horse thinks, that's unlikely, it's just a game, and then leaves that machine. And the horse continues to explore the park and goes to the boundaries of the park to look out over the city, and notices that all the cars seem to be driving themselves, that the people in all the cars are facing each other, or just sitting, reading, or wearing glasses, and the horse has no idea what's going on behind the glasses. And there seems to be no traffic lights. Everything just seems to move like clockwork. Almost like some higher power is controlling everything. And the horse feels that maybe this park is the one place all these humans have to go, where they've got the freedom to make their own decisions, do their own thing. And to take control of their journey, not just their destination. And enjoy their journey, enjoying paying attention to their journey, rather than doing something else while the journey takes care of itself. And so that horse then turns around and starts to find its way back through that park. And it sees someone walking a dog, throwing a ball for that dog, and the dog sprints off, runs straight past that ball, circles around, pauses for a bit while it tries to find where that ball has gone, finds the ball, runs back, tail wagging, to its owner, jumps up and down, the owner throws the ball again. And then that dog comes back with that ball again, and the owner crouches down, and the dog jumps up, front paws on their lap, nudging with their nose on the owner's face, the owner rubbing the sides of the dog rubbing the side of its head on the side of the owner's head, resting its chin on the owner's shoulder. And the horse loved that sight of companionship, and the love those two clearly have for each other. And it headed back towards that crystal cave, found its way back through that crystal cave, and then found itself back in that meadow where the mushrooms were. And the horse found its way through the meadow, back through the woods. And after a while, the horse could begin to hear that tree in that field, could begin to hear the sounds of birds, and could feel itself waking up in that field. And it woke up in the field, hearing sounds across the other side of the field, and could see its owner placing some hay down in the field, over the far side of the field, and the horse trotted over to the owner, but the owner walked off, and so the horse just began to eat that hay. And while it was eating the hay, so it saw the owner returning, with the horse walking along beside them, and the owner walked to the gate, opened the gate, and that horse walked into the field. The owner closed the gate behind them, and the two horses went over to each other and realized that they got on straight away. And they walked along, touching sides with each other, synchronizing movements, head movements, steps, walking around the field together, eating, drinking together. And then resting against each other as the sun started to set, and the sounds began to change around them. The two horses with their breathing synchronized, resting, touching each other. This horse wondered about that machine and felt a good feeling inside. And drifted and floated comfortably and relaxed, asleep.